جاءت به آياته فهو الكريم المنزل وأقول قال الله جل جلاله والمصطفى الهادي ولا أتأول.
I'm being honest with you. You're all طلاب العلم and have studied Islamic sciences. Wallahi, I'll be honest with you. The shubuhat that I was exposed to at Yale, some of them I still don't have answers for.
But with my utmost respect, I believe that these creeds that we are wed to also have elements of human products in them. But frankly, the Sunni theological schools are very much akin to these legal schools. And we need to understand that they are human attempts to get at the truth. And you see the development of theology.
I mean, Aqidah in general, the way it's taught and studied from different schools of thought, it's taught as something black and white, something...
And every
do's
school
and
teaches
don'ts.
this. And every school is incorrect in this regard. Because Aqidah is a development. And you see for yourself that there is an actual internal development.
Really, this shows you that the guy is ignorant of what Aqidah is. This is wallahi stupidity. He doesn't know what Aqidah is when he says it. Wallahi, when you study Aqidah, this is the only way you will save yourself from the fire of hell, and this is the only or the primary way that you will increase in your love of Allah. The Salaf of the Sahaba, the Tabi'een, and the Tabi'ut Tabi'een. These three generations were perfect in their Aqidah. They had no difference between amongst them. Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari and all of these Mu'tazili, they came after the time of the Sahaba, and some of them existed at the later generations of the Sahaba, but none of the Sahaba were of their.
It's not surprising that our medieval scholars believe this type of stuff. Now, obviously, dare I say, anybody who knows science and geography and modern civilization, you cannot believe that there is a tribe for 4,000 years trapped behind a wall. I mean, if you believe this, that's your position. I cannot believe it. I cannot believe it. I find this very difficult to believe. They're in some place separated from mankind. So if somebody were to say, how can we believe these ahadith when Google Earth has mapped the whole world? We can zoom in and see everything around us, and there is no massive land hidden from mankind. The response is, Wallahu ala kulli shay'in qadir. Allahu a'lam. If we believe in the ahadith, this is what the ahadith tell us. This is what the ahadith tell us. And there's a simple rule that Ibn Taymiyyah mentions. Memorize this rule. The Quran and Sunnah does not bring the impossible, but it does bring that which astounds the mind. Is it impossible that somewhere underground Allah has thousands of people living? It's not impossible. It's not impossible. The issue of the Mawlid, for example, Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar is very frank. It's a very beautiful fatwa of Ibn Hajar. He goes, look, in a technical sense, of course it's a bid'ah. He says this, Ibn Hajar. In a technical sense, it's a bid'ah. The Prophet didn't do it. The Sahaba didn't do it. But if on that day people come together, give some charity, recite the fada'il of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they do dhikr, then it is bid'ah hasana. What's wrong with that? Hold on a sec, something's fishy here. So for 600 years after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, nobody in the entire Muslim lands, Islam Muslim, we're not talking about Christians with Christmas, Muslims are not celebrating the birthday of the Prophet ﷺ. Why?
Abu Hanifa,
none of them.
Buhari, Muslim.
None of them. Because the concept was not even in their heads. There's a very famous scholar, Ibn Hajar. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, the famous Ibn Hajar. He said, this is a bid'ah. The Prophet ﷺ never did it. But there's good in it as well, because people come together and they mention Allah and the Prophet and they just talk about the seerah, etc., etc. So, others opposed and they said, no, there can't be any such thing as a good bid'ah. And some scholars say that this act, the thought of it came from celebrating Christmas. That when the Christians show respect to Jesus Christ, then these guys thought that they could do better and show respect to the Prophet by celebrating his birthday. No, if you really loved the Prophet ﷺ, your lifestyle would be in accordance with his. That's how you would love the Prophet. I just have a simple question. Can you outdo the companions in your love for the Prophet ﷺ? Can you do better than Abu Bakr and Umar?
No way.
Well then, why don't you just stick with it? Just stick with how Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and Ali radiallahu anhum, how Imam Bukhari, Imam Muslim, how they did it. And you know how they did it? They followed the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. There are many ulama who do not think so, and there are great ulama. And if a person is following a great alim, what can you say? Imam al-Nawawi said it's mustahab. Right? Imam al-Suyuti said this. Ibn Hajar said this. There is no innovation which is a good innovation. Some of the scholars, they try to categorize innovations into good or bad. But the Prophet ﷺ himself stated every innovation is an evil innovation and is a bid'ah, and every bid'ah leads to the fire of hell. The whole point of innovation is that you think Islam is incomplete. You have to add something. In the end of the day, Allah Azza wa Jal will reward and punish people based upon their niyyah. The Prophet ﷺ said, Allah has refused to accept the deeds of any person who does innovation until he leaves that innovation. Someone who is innovating, his actions will not be accepted from him until he leaves that innovation. You might have a good intention, realize. You might think that what you're doing is good, but your intentions don't count here. Your actions speak louder than your words. By adding something to Islam, by claiming that, oh, this is a good act, even though it's not in the Quran and Sunnah, you are claiming that you know better than Allah and His Messenger. That they left something out of the religion. That you came along 1,000 whatever years later and discovered something that they didn't tell you. So this is the implications of a person who innovates. And that is why the Prophet ﷺ, in the most severest of terms, has cursed and warned against those who innovate. See them as they are. And in my humble opinion, the Salafi movement has many positives, and we should embrace these positives. And of those positives is the purity of its creed, the primacy of the sacred text, the encouragement of critical thinking, the avoidance of superstitious, if you like, rituals and over-exaltation of saints, an emphasis on hadith authentication, an emphasis overall on knowledge. All of these are great aspects of Salafism. But Salafism also has some negatives as well. And that is, in my humble opinion, one of the greatest negatives is that it has taken issues of theology, abstract issues of theology, and made them the ultimate goal over and above actual religiosity. So it is more important for many Salafis to affirm Allah's attributes than it is to worship Allah through those attributes. It is the issue of a part of Iman in Allah is to understand Allah's names and Allah's attributes. It is essential to also talk about, well, how do we know anything about Allah? Our only source of information regarding Allah is how Allah has described Himself in the Quran and in the Sunnah. Is to turn back to the way of the early scholars, the early generations. They were the only group who really and truly understood the names of Allah properly, as these narrations show you. And then after them came many groups who deviated from the path. So if we wish to attain success, we need to turn back to them and understand the way they understood it. And Salafis need to realize, and let me be very blunt here, that if Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu was amongst us right now, and they gave him a quiz of Aqidah, the fact of the matter is, that test that you put in front of him, he would fail it. Right? So this hadith is extremely powerful about the status of the Sahaba, and it's an explicit hadith, do not speak ill of my companions. And this shows us, therefore, as Sunni Muslims, we keep our mouths pure. Our tongues are absolutely clean when it comes to speaking about the Sahaba. We either say good or we remain quiet. But no Muslim will ever say anything, or no true Muslim will say anything about the companions. Wallahi, Umar ibn al-Khattab is billion, I can't even put a number better than me and you. We know this. And yet, a Deobandi, a Salafi, an Ash'ari, anybody were to quiz him, a first-year exam from Darul Ulum, from Medina, from Azhar, from any institution, he would fail in every single subject. There were people in the children of Israel who would be spoken to, but they were not prophets. There would be some type of indirect wahi, but they were not anbiya. They were indirectly inspired by Allah. That the Prophet is saying, if there is anybody who is inspired by Allah indirectly, then that person is Umar ibn al-Khattab. Okay, and that's definitely a blessing that does not need any explanation. The hadith, the famous hadith, all of you know, the best of all generations is my generation, then those that come after them, then those that come after them. And we explained that this bestness, this fadila, has to be in all fields, not just in one. Of them is the hadith of a woman coming to the Prophet ﷺ, and she said, I have this issue that I want to do with you. I want to get from you a fatwa or a religious verdict. So the Prophet said, come back at such and such a time. She said, what if you are not present? Who should I go to? He said, go to Abu Bakr. She asked, what if he's not present? He said, go to Umar. But we can all agree that Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and Ali radiallahu anhu and all of the other scholars of the past, they have reached heights that we have never reached. Wahhabist, or it's also called Salafist parties, Wahhabist, which really demonstrates that they are not an insignificant minority. Salafism is a type of Protestant Islam. And that is why Salafism does not like icons, which is why certain movements such as Al-Qaeda and ISIS like to destroy religious icons that are figurines, as they try to destroy the statues and whatnot. Okay? Most Wahhabis are very apolitical, very pacifist. Most Wahhabis, you can consider them to be somewhat like maybe the Amish or the ultra-Orthodox Jews. The theology of Wahhabism is that they are labeling this group of people with a label. And they are telling, as if the other Muslims, oh, you must disassociate yourself from this group of people. And they have chosen this label, they call it Wahhabi, or they call it Salafi. And they say, this is what the Wahhabis teach, this is what the Salafis teach. Now, if you look at what they are teaching and what they are saying, much of it is something which is general to Islam. Okay, some other brother says something about homosexuality, he doesn't like homosexuality. Is homosexuality a sin only to this one group in Islam that they have invented, Wahhabis? No Muslim calls himself a Wahhabi. Amongst ourselves, we can discuss and fine-tune and detail, no problem. But to take one group and label it with an invented label, this label of Wahhabi is an invented label, this label of Wahhabi is an invented label, and then say, oh, this is all coming from this group. What do you think they're trying to do? They're trying to divide and conquer. They're trying to cut and break the ummah and say, okay, this is one group called the Wahhabis. What happens? Those who don't like this label, don't call themselves this label, nobody does. But I'm saying the groups that don't even like, for example, the theology of this group, they will say, okay, this anger is directed toward these Wahhabis, that's fine, let them do that. I'm not going to support my fellow Muslims in Islam. So she goes on to this website and she says the scholar sitting 5,000 miles away in a land very far from Finland has said that it is sinful for a convert to go to her family or his family, whatever, on the day of Christmas because it is a pagan festival. Those fatwa that you're referencing in those websites, with the respect that they deserve, they don't understand what exactly a family gathering at Christmas is. They have never interacted with a Christian civilization. They are living in a very different world than the ones we inhabit. And so their understanding is skewed. We all know that a family gathering together on the day of Christmas or the night of Christmas Eve, and they come together, is more of a family event. Generally speaking, there's zero religion. Your participation in the family festival does not constitute worshipping other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there is no hint of servitude to other than Allah in a generic festival of this nature. Somebody 5,000 miles away says, oh, it is haram for you to go. No, it is not haram for you to go, not at all. You are not celebrating Christmas. It's because many of our young children, they ask us, why don't we celebrate Christmas? Why can't we have a Christmas tree? Why can't we do this and we do that? And to this we respond, we as Muslims, we do not celebrate the holy days of other religions, because by celebrating those holy days, it's as if we are celebrating the concept behind the holy day. And for many Christians, the 25th of December is the celebration of the birth of a man they call the Son of God. And we don't believe God has a son. To say that Allah has a child cannot come from the intellect. It cannot come from knowledge. It cannot come from a book. Where does it come from? They literally invent it from their mouths. كَبُرَتْ كَلِمَةً تَخْرُجُ مِنْ أَفْوَاهِهِمْ إِنْ يَقُولُونَ إِلَّا كَذِبًا. They are saying that which is not true. It is a lie. And to lie about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is of the greatest crimes. Anyone who says Allah has a child or children or daughters or sons, this is not true. What a monstrosity comes from their mouths. We despise falsehood. We despise lies. It is ingrained in us, and this feeling comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He put it in us. So if we were to celebrate that day, it's as if we too are saying, oh, we believe that God has a son. And we don't believe that God has a son. So we say to them that we are not going to celebrate on this day. Second issue that I want all of us to think about is we need to differentiate between slogans and actual solutions. This is the second point. Differentiate between slogans and solutions. All too often,
We fall prey to beautiful slogans, and many times they're legitimate and true, but they are useless in providing actual solutions. So for example, we have all heard many of these slogans. Islam is the answer. We must return to the Quran and Sunnah. Or there are groups that say, we must return to the example of the Salaf or the righteous predecessors. And again, it's a good slogan. It has an element of truth that we follow the Sahaba, we respect the Sahaba, we respect the students of the Sahaba. But tell me, how did those early generations mobilize against the Islamophobic media? How did they challenge their politicians in parliament when their parliament was going to pass anti-terrorism legislation that would actually ban and criminalize religiosity? You're not going to find anything like that because it didn't happen to them. It didn't happen to them. So when you tell me to go back to the past, okay, I agree, we should respect the past, but it doesn't give me what? What does it give me? A solution.
Well, again, let us look at the Prophet ﷺ and let us look at what Allah tells him to do. Because, brothers and sisters, realize that when we say the Prophet ﷺ is a role model, what that means is, let's study what he did. Let's examine his life and times. If he truly is a role model, well then, me and you, we all need to be studying his life, seeing what he did to battle that Islamophobia, seeing what he did to battle that Islamophobia. In fact, our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam was the very first subject, the very first person who was attacked by what we now call Islamophobia, who was attacked by what we now call Islamophobia. Our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam society, the Quraysh of Mecca, was the first society that was willing to go against their own principles and to contradict everything they believed in merely because they hated this man and his message.
حب الصحابة كلهم لي مذهب ومودة القربى بها أتوسل ولكلهم قدر على وفضائل لكنما الصديق منهم أفضل